Good morning, everybody. It's your boy D Max. So let's talk about this. I'm coming on this morning, and I'm not a local news guy. I typically don't report on local news or news in our area in general at all. But this falls in the line of what I deal with a lot, and so this is a story that jumped out to me, and I felt like I can put this on here and maybe somebody can hear it and something can happen. But whatever the case may be, there's a 17-year-old girl. Her name is Quinaeja Taylor. She's a black young lady. She's out of Irving, Texas. And I'm going to just start by saying that in Dallas yesterday and last night, we had a lot of rain and we had a whole lot of flooding to take place. And I don't mean like up to your knees or up to your hip. I mean like big waves of rushing water that was almost covering up vehicles and was pushing vehicles in. Well, it was a pretty bad flood that took place last night. I don't know if Irving was one of the primary spots that it hit, but I do know that there was a major flood that took place in Dallas and there was a lot of damage and possibly some people lost. And so this could be one of the possibilities of where this young lady is because she turned up. She was missing. Last time she was seen was 2 a.m. Sunday morning. Now they say that she has the mental capacity of a young child, of a little girl. You know, she suffers from major depression. She also suffers from bipolar, and she has the mental capacity of a little child. And she was seen at 2 a.m. Whoever saw her at 2 a.m., why they didn't, you know, raise up an alert because somebody in that type of mental state shouldn't be out at 2 a.m. But uh, whatever the case, like she was last seen at 2 a.m. and she was wearing a black shirt with Nike across the front in white letters. She had on black leggings and she had a silver purse. So if you're in the Irving area, if you're in the Dallas area, all the different places that, God forbid she could have been taken to or something of that nature, just keep an eye out for that description. A young black lady. She's about 17 years old, probably about five, maybe 5'5", 5'6", and she has the mental capacity of a child. There's no way that you wouldn't notice if you came in contact with her. So if you do, just notify the Irving Police Department, and you can either dial 911 or you can call them at 972-273-1010. That's 972-273-1010. And it's a sad story, man. Either way the case may go, I pray that nobody picked her up and do what is taking place so many times nowadays as far as abductions and things of that nature. I really hope that that is not the case, but it very well could be based on statistics and what's going on in the days and times that we're living in. But also, like I stated, there was a really bad flood in Dallas, and I know Irving is surrounding areas, so all of those different areas. There's a lot of flat land here in Texas, and so when we do get large amounts of rain at one time, if it rains for half a day or a day steadily, it's going to be some problems in a lot of areas here because we have a lot of flat land. And so, hopefully she wasn't anywhere where she got washed away in some type of situation. There's so many different things that starts to run through your head when you don't have the full story and you're still trying to figure out what took place and stuff like that, especially if you're not from there and you don't really know this person and their situation. There's a lot of variables that could play into it, but I felt it on my heart to be able to put this out, put this information out, because it can happen. Yeah, there's been the most random things that saved a person's life. And I really truly believe that the energy that you put out there can really make the difference in some situations that's going on in this realm that we live in. A lot of things are conditioned upon frequency and the energy that is placed towards it, such as us as people. I've spoke about a lot of things, man, but one thing I talk about is chakra, because that is the lines of communication and connection and emotion in us. That's where those lines intersect. Communication, which stirs emotion, provokes emotion within us, provokes thought, provokes all of these different motivations throughout our body, and they come through these signals, external signals, and it's just an amazing thing to me. So I always am thinking along those lines whenever I think of anything. The energy that's placed into it, the energy that's received from something that will cause something to react in a certain way because it stimulated a certain part of us to do so. I know when I used to, back in the day when I was in the streets doing whatever, I would listen to certain music and certain songs that would pump me up and motivate me to go and do what I was going to do. Same thing as when I used to go to the gym and stuff. And there's certain songs that you want on your playlist when you go to the gym, because those songs pump you up and make you feel like you can throw up an extra 5, extra 10 pounds. So there's a high level of interference that is taking place right now as far as our frequencies among us as people. And so, with this young lady being out here with all of the mental health issues that she has, she's just sending off a signal to those predators. Even if she hasn't felt fallen victim to that yet, if she's out there by herself and being in the state of mind that she's in, there's always opportunists and predators looking for those opportunities. And so I definitely want to get this word out as quick as possible. Like I said, she went missing Sunday night, Sunday morning about 2 a.m. So there's a possibility. And if anybody brought her this way, I'm telling you now, please don't allow me to see you. Please do not allow me to see you. Um, yeah. So I stay on different stuff like this. Like I said before, if it touches my heart to do so, I'm going to definitely put the word out there, because somebody in Irving uh is going to work this morning and they see somebody dealing with some a young lady in a harsh manner, and they could pass it off as, oh, that's just somebody arguing with their daughter or something like that, depending on who she's with and what the age dynamic is. But there's so many different ways that these scenarios can play out. And I often burden myself with coming up with all of these different scenarios. And then whenever the actual story comes out, it's a hit or miss type deal. But, that's an unhealthy mindset to be in, because dwelling on dwelling on negativity actually dictates how your attitude is going to be during that time, and even throughout the course of your day if you're not careful with that type of stuff. So I'm always trying to be mindful of the things that I take in and how much of that thing am I going to carry upon myself. And some things are heavy. Some of the burdens that we choose to carry are very heavy burdens. And we equipped and we got the shoulders to carry that type of stuff, and that's why we would take it on. But sometimes we will take on too much. And sometimes we will put ourselves in a position where we start to um, attract this negative energy to ourselves through the negative things that we've been feeding into ourselves. And so dwelling on death is one of those things. Now, I'll say we always should consider death and understand how, how death works, but at the same time, dwelling on it and just feeding on that will put you in a deep, dark place. It'll take you to some really, really dark places. That's just a little warning I want to put out there for people who are intrigued by death and stuff like that, especially at the age that we're in now and our young people. That's all they see is death. They see their young friends dying at the rate or even a much higher rate than the old people who are seeing their friends die from old age. Just think about that. Let me say that again because a little notification came in and might have drowned it out. But our young children are seeing their friends die at a faster rate than our elderly people are seeing their friends die. That's a very scary variable when you think about that. And so anytime I hear about when, because we all get the Amber Alerts on our phone and stuff like that. So whenever I hear those Amber Alerts go out, and oftentimes it's the dad who's got the children and he's broken or violated the divorce decree or the child support, the child visitation decree, something like that, and oftentimes the kids come back and the parent faces the law. That's how it typically goes with some of the ones around here in Texas. I can't speak for everywhere, but in Texas, that's generally what the outcome of a lot of our Amber Alerts be. But sometimes they don't end up like that. And we have to protect these young ladies. I say it all the time because I have daughters. I have five daughters, and my daughters are grown and my daughters are out here in this world and they're building a life and they're targets. I have to say it for what it is. It's hard for us as men, and we've raised these girls up their whole entire life, and we've protected them all of their life. And now they're out here, and they're not under our protection anymore. They're a long distance away from you. They're hours away in different directions. And so you feel helpless as a father because one of the main primary functions deep in the core of us as a man, any man that claims to be a man, one of our core primary duties is to protect the women in our life. And if we can't protect our daughters, that is one of the worst feelings in the world, man. Man, to anything happen with any of my children, son, daughter alike, I'm on the next thing smoking. Period, point blank. I have a few that's still around here in the general area, but I have children who are in other states. And, they move for jobs and different things of that nature. And so if anything happened with any of my kids major, best believe I'm on the next thing smoking. And I heard a story. This is a little bit off topic, but at the same time, it's still on topic because there was a story that came out during this whole R. Kelly second trial, and now you have the young girl from back in the day, the infamous tapes, and her aunt Sparkle, and they're going back and forth in court now because the girl is alleging that Sparkle influenced her to get close to the R. Kelly and stuff like that. But the thing that stuck out to me was, she said that R. Kelly told her niece's father in his face, man to man, that Man, your daughter is so beautiful and your daughter is so wonderful. I pleasure myself to her pictures. That's just how fine your daughter is. And we came to the general consensus that no respectable man that calls himself a father, no matter who is saying it, would allow another man to say something like that about his daughter in his face and then turn around and leave his daughter with that person, not under his supervision. I couldn't. I'm trying to imagine this. I'm really, really trying to imagine this, and I really can't put that scenario to imagination. Good morning, Durham's finest. How you doing? I just need to get my comments up here. I'm talking too much this morning, but blessings to you. Yeah, and so I can't imagine as a father with daughters that I would not be in jail for doing something to a man who would have the audacity and the nerve to say something that derogatory about my daughter to me. I'm very protective when it comes to the women in my family. I'm very protective when it comes to anybody in my family, male or female, but like I said, in particular, the women, because you got to look at the state of the union. And the temperature in the United States right now is there are a lot of special interest groups that are out here and they have a vendetta to strike up as much chaos and as much hatred and as much fear as they can. And they are abducting people. Now, this ain't no conspiracy theory. This ain't no Alex Jones type conversation. This is actual reality. We had 13 young, and this was a couple years back. But I'm going to say this to follow my point. There were 13 black and Hispanic females abducted from the Washington, D.C. area a few years back. And the rage came from the fact that there were stories where a young lady, a singular young lady, would be abducted and there would be a nationwide search. But 13 young ladies at practically at the same time, 13 young ladies, black and Hispanic, all abducted around the same time span within this certain time lapse. And there was practically no coverage of it. There was no search, no major search. There was a routine search that the cops would do. We'll keep an eye out on the streets, and but there was no major alarm or urgency about this alarming number of young females who were abducted from the Washington D.C. area, and that really just blew my mind. I ain't even gonna front because that showed me the off balance scale for the value of certain lives in this country versus others. And so that gave me this sense of awareness at that point, like, man, we really got to protect our sisters and our mamas and female cousins and aunties and stuff like that. Just as men, this is nothing that somebody told me I had to do. This is nothing that anybody instilled in me. It was just the things that I was seeing as a young man going on in this world and how women were so unprotected, and that was just something that I made up in my heart and my mind at that time to do. And that's something that I've always done throughout my life. And so if I see a female in distress, now, granted, there's going to be certain situations that you know to stay out of it, keep your hands off of it. absolutely understand that. I'm not naive to just run into every situation and be Captain Save or whatever. But there are situations where you do have to step up and you do have to put forth some initiative because you could very well be intervening in a abduction. You could be intervening in a young lady being abused or any type of situation, and you'll know, man, you'll feel it. You definitely will feel when you need to say something. There's gonna be this intuition that's going to urge you, is going to tug at you. Man, you need to say something. You need to do something. And a lot of times we'll suppress that feeling because we really don't want to involve ourselves in certain stuff, man. But sometimes we have to push past that. And we really have to say something and really have to have an integrity check in that moment to be able to go on that. And whether you're right or wrong, man, the intent behind it and the reason behind it can be understood by most decent and understanding people. You know, there's a lot of situations that don't turn out right. A lot of interactions out here in these streets that don't turn out right. We was talking last night. Now, shout out to Queen. Shout out to man, Pro 901. Shout out to um, Tazo TV. Shout out to Farm from Harlem. Shout, man, there's so many different people I'm starting to interact with, and we were having conversations about these types of things, and that's what I appreciate with being able to just fellowship with other people on here and talk about different things that's going on. Because this young lady, like I said, man, she has a lot of mental health issues, and there are people out here in these streets. The only difference between a lot of us and them is that we've been diagnosed. I know I've been diagnosed with PTSD, um, but a lot of people walking around here and they haven't been diagnosed with anything because one, they don't have the access to health care to afford to go and be diagnosed for anything. Most people who go to the hospital and don't have any insurance, they're going because of a physical ailment or injury that they can't fix at home. And that's all. And, a lot of us, we take for granted the health care that we do have and the ability to just go to a hospital and you don't have to worry about that bill and all. We take that for granted a lot of times if you are able to have health care at that level. So a lot of things don't get diagnosed in a lot of people because simply they don't have the money to go and get diagnosed. That's all. But they're out here and they're being forced to interact with everybody in the world at this certain level, and it could definitely be something that is tedious to them. And I don't know why everybody want to send notifications like right in the middle of my show. That really irks me sometimes, but it is what it is. Um, yeah, people's mental health issues causes a lot of these things that we see in the news, and we be like, man, how can somebody do something like that? Well, we don't know that that person had blase disorder going with them. They just had been diagnosed. There's certain there was a story that took place here in Killeen with he was a retired pastor and retired military, and he was had moved here to Killeen with his wife, and he had a mental episode. He suffered from PTSD. He suffered from paranoid schizophrenia as well, I believe. And this is the claim from the police department and their mental health corps, because the police department here has a psychologist that is on call. So whenever they do have to go into a scene where they're dealing with somebody who's suffering from severe mental health issues, they have a psychologist that they can bring in that can actually talk to the person, and we won't have one of those shooting situations. Well, in this case, the day before on that Saturday, they had a call to the residence of the former pastor that I'm talking about, and he had an episode. Well, the mental health professional was on call and they were available and they talked him down and they calmed the situation down, de escalated the situation for that time being. The man went back in his home and, it was cool. Well, the following day, he had another episode and the police were called out. Good morning, Miss Holly Favored, and blessings to see you. And so they called them out again. And that morning, the healthcare professional was not available. And so the police officer went by himself and he did not know the situation. So when he got there, the man was real high energy. He was pretty angry and upset. And the officer, I'm going to play devil's advocate here because the video shows plainly that the officer tried everything before he actually had to do what he did. And so the man rushed at him. He hit him with the taser. The taser took him down for a second and he got up and he ripped the taser tongs out of him and he rushed at the officer again. The officer shot him, and it was a bad situation because, for one, being that the situation was escalated and you heard at the door that it was escalated, you should have at that time called for backup before running into a high energy situation alone as a white officer dealing with black people in a high energy situation. That just wasn't a good mix, for one. And then for two, it you know not having that healthcare professional available at that time again for that situation. So you got to have more than one healthcare professional available because that person has a life and they can't just be on call 24/7 and put that on one person. That's not going to work. I mean, I commend them for taking steps towards it because they did have one, but at the same time, it's now they're slowly finding out that they're going to have more than one, especially here where I live, because there's a lot of military retired people here and a lot of people suffering from PTSD. Um, say during financial said that's so true. I see a lot of mental issues daily. You work in transportation, and most of our homeless are ex-veteran with mental issues that are not getting the help from the VA. Absolutely, man, absolutely. And I say again, good morning to you, Miss Highly Favorite. But yeah, I used to come to Dallas, Fort Worth, because my mother-in-law would come in town, and a lot of times if she would like to ride the bus, and we would pick her up at Dallas Fort Worth at the bus station, and you would see a lot of these people out there. And yeah, it's bad, man. It's bad, and it's down here in Austin area. There's a lot under the bridge by Sixth Street down here, and a lot of them. I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say this with the knowledge of going through the VA and dealing with the VA system. A lot of us initially will go to the VA, and there's so much frustration in the time that you have to wait, and you have to be able to demonstrate a lot of patience when dealing with a lot of these VAs. Um, some are better than others as far as time management and being able to get people in and giving them the services they need. But a lot of us veterans, like I said, we're dealing with these issues, and one of those issues is trust, and another one of those issues is patience. And so we will initially go to the VA, but we will get frustrated with the VA. I'm telling you what I know. It's been time. My wife will tell you she just left for work, but my wife will tell you I've been something else at that VA. I showed my total entire butt at the VA before and had to go back and apologize to them because I showed out and lost it. But those are that energy is in that building. You have all of these different people dealing with all of this different stuff in one building, and they're just feeding off of each other. Because I guarantee you, if you've been to the VA and you've been standing in a line with some people for a minute, a veteran do not mind turning around and starting a conversation with you about how sorry and how lousy the people at the VA are. They'll sit there and talk to you all the way till they get up till they turn at the line or whatever. And there's just a lot of that energy in a lot of these VA buildings. And some of the worst. I go to the Temple VA here in Texas, and it's a pretty good VA, I have to say, based on other experiences that I've heard from people and different places. I'm not going to put any of those other institutions out there like that, but there's some VAs that don't have a good record of service. I'll just say that. But yeah, man. Protective over females. I'm very protective over any female that is in my circle, regardless. And that's just how it is. So when I hear stories like this, man, I have to put something out there because, like I said, any detail. You said my mic. Okay, thank you. Let's see what's going on with my mic. It's probably this connection I got in here. Like I said, we caught the back end of that bad weather from Dallas, and that caused all of that flooding yesterday and but the night before. So there may be some interference in here, but yeah, that's been the whole entire thing that I wanted to talk about this morning. I wanted to put out that information on the young lady. And I definitely wanted to address. I wanted to address the mental health aspect of it. You said thanks for you. Thank you very much, Durham Finest. That's probably one of the best decisions that I made in my life. I can absolutely say going into the military is one of the best things that happened, best decisions that I made in my life because it gave me a sense of direction at a time where I was just kind of looking for where I was going to go in my life. And so it gave me a direction to go in. And then I was able to piggyback off of that and get my foot in the door of dealing with people in the mental health industry. And it's definitely something. They say that most people who go into like mental health field as far as psychiatry, counseling, and stuff of that nature, it's because oftentimes we want to try to diagnose what's going on with us or somebody that's close to us, and it really motivates us to seek an answer, and that'll push us often into that field. A lot of empaths in the field of counseling and psychiatry and stuff like that. So shouts out to everybody in the healthcare field all the way across the spectrum. Yeah, you said GA is well intentioned, but we know some government employees are, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're well intentioned, and some. I will speak on this. I've said this before that a lot of the people who work at the VA are veterans. A lot of those positions are held by veterans. And one of the things in the military that we learned was how to find a way to have some downtime when we're supposed to be working. And we'll get into this mode to where we'll get almost offended if you expect us to do some real work and get up and do something. I will say that I've had documents. The only thing that needed to happen was it needed to go from this person's office on their desk over to this office that's diagonal in the same hallway as that office. That's all that needed to take place in order for this to go through. And my stuff would sit there for weeks. And you have to call and you have to follow up with your VA reps, because if you don't, if you just sit back and say, "Oh, they got it," and leave it in their hands, oh yeah, you're gonna get a real rude awakening. You're gonna learn and understand that if you're not following up with them and you're not on their case about it and micromanaging them in a lot of instances, then your paperwork will just sit somewhere for a long time. And that is a major part of the frustration that you deal with working with the VA, because you you don't want to be a running a they will if you allow them to, they will have you running back and forth, jumping through all of these different hoops to do the work that they can actually do just through a stroke of a key on their computer. I've had them suggest that I do certain things, but you have access to the entire system. Why would I go and do all of this when you can simply access that through this module right here? Now, if I know that as the patient, how do you, as the healthcare provider, not know this? And, so a lot of us will get really frustrated with the VA, and we'll try to avoid our interactions with them as much as possible. Me right now, I'm like on a every 3 month type deal with them. Every 90 days, I have a reevaluation and checkup and stuff like that. But I try to minimize my dealings with that environment as much as possible, because when you do have problems with patients and you uh, deal with PTSD and things like that, and you have a short temper span, it's hard to be put in those high anxiety situations, and your anxiety starts to go up really fast. And so we minimize our interaction with the VA and stuff like that, because it's just you don't want to go through your anxiety shooting through the roof like that. And but it's a one of those necessary things. As a veteran, stay you have to stay informed about what's really going on with you, because I know when I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was one of those macho dudes like, this ain't nothing, this for weak people. This ain't gonna affect my life. I'm me. I'm gonna go and do things like I always did it before, and it's just gonna be that. But it wasn't that. whenever I whenever I tried to go back into doing my regular routine and stuff like that, and I was snapping at people for stuff that wasn't it didn't warrant that type of energy, I'll just say. And beforehand, before deployment and all of that stuff, I was always the type of person who could just sit back and chill and let it go. Hey, you got it, dog. That was my demeanor. That was how I carried myself. I wasn't no high intensity dude. And so at this point, whenever I was snapping at people and I was, you know, just had a very defensive posture about everything, I was like, oh, this ain't me, man. And that's when I really started to recognize that this PTSD thing is real. This is real. Okay, hold up. And that's when I really started working on it. And not just me, there was my family, the great support system, and also I'm a spiritual dude, so I had my spiritual support as well. I always keep that as my foundation for anything that I deal with. And so with that, I've got back to a place of where I'm somewhat chill, but I also had to learn that I was trying to find my way back to the old me, which I could never be. There's new me that has to come out of this. And I had to start looking forward to the new me instead of trying to go back and regain the old me. And once I had that understanding and I started moving forward and just building from there, then, things are becoming easier. But it's still them times. It's still them times whenever I'm out there on the road and somebody cut 3 lanes across in front of me when they could have easily went behind me and got off that exit. And now I gotta fight that urge to follow them just to see why they acting so stupid on the road. I still deal with stuff like that. I still deal with wanting to pop off and having to grab my lips and smush them up like my mama used to do when I was little and was talking too much. Still got to do that because, those urges still hit. Those tempers still flare up. And it's been 11 years since I deployed. I was just thinking about that the other day. 2011, and yeah, it's been 11 years. So it ain't no easy process. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight. It's something that you're gonna work on for the rest of your life, just like addiction. If you were to uh, be in recovery from addiction, you're always gonna be an addict, and you're always gonna have um, that potential in your life as a part of your life. And I know people who've been sober for 20, 30 years and something happened in their life and they relapse. Been clean and sober, haven't even thought about a drink or whatever their drug of choice was for many years, many years. And the pressures of the world and the hardships of life cause them to fall back. And when they do fall back, you're a lot older. You're not you don't have those young lungs and that young heart no more. And you go out there and you try to party like you did back in the day. And now you end up having a massive heart attack or having an overdose or something like that. I've lost so many people like that. I've lost at least, I can think of 4 just right in this instance. But I'm sure there's many more when I put my mind to it. And that's a scary thing. So, when we're out here and we're dealing with these different issues in life, they're going to they're going to take us to certain places because, like I said, I'm very much of an advocate for mental health. I'm very much an advocate for children. And that's because of traumas that I've experienced in my life, and that with the help of my higher power, I've been able to gain a certain level of peace about. And so the reason that took place was because now there's other people out there who needs that same sense of peace. There's people out there who need somebody to be able to understand where they're coming from. And only a person who's experienced those things and been through them themselves can actually know where that person is coming from and relate to that person and help them out. It's the same concept as any, if you're a spiritual person, if you're a biblical minded person, it's the same concept as Jesus. God had to come down here to experience everything that we're going through so that he could actually have the proper compassion for us. That's the same concept. And so that's where I'm at with it, man. I appreciate everybody for coming on this morning and chopping it up. I'm going to start doing panels. I said that before, and I'm just loosening up to the idea because most of my format has always just been me talking and thinking out my inner ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, I definitely need to engage more on that panel level. It's very interesting, and you come away with a whole lot. So I'm gonna find a time that's gonna be suitable because I know different people have their certain set times that they like to go on and stuff like that, and I'm mindful of things like that. I don't want to step on no toes. I don't want to uh, overlap other shows that I enjoy going on their panels as well. So I'm just gonna find me a little time groove that's gonna be cool that everybody will be able to come in and we can just chop it up and stuff like that. And I'm gonna start doing panels. So blessings to everybody who came in this morning. Your crazy cousin, man. I really appreciate you for just for your support, man. You've been rocking with me for a minute, and you've been turning other people on to my content, man. I just appreciate a brother like you. And I'm always gonna think highly of you and speak highly of you, man. Um, Miss Highly Favored, I really thank you for coming in and giving your feedback. Like I said, iron sharpens iron, and we all growing together intentionally. So this is your boy D Mac, man. Y'all know what I say. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.